Hello and welcome to another edition of the Bullpen. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Mike Hardball Hardge, and of course, trusty companion, world traveler, Marc Pena. How you doing?
Doing fantastic, guys. Good to see both of y'all.
You too.
Absolutely.
You too. Thanks for having me on, guys.
So I guess Horns have a successful little weekend out in Vegas. They take down Washington, the old nemesis Texas Tech, and then the miniature Augie Garrido Memorial matchup between Texas and Illinois. I guess Marc, let's start with you. What did you see this weekend? What was your thoughts?
Man, just really impressed to see Texas get out of there with 3 wins, right? I think anytime you're away from home, you're playing 3 decent teams and you win all 3 games, that's a very successful weekend to me. I think last week when we talked, right, there was a couple questions starting to come up about the offense after not scoring a lot of runs against Dartmouth, but I think those questions were answered over the weekend, with Texas getting double digits all 3 games and scoring 35. What was it, 35 runs over the weekend, something like that?
Yeah.
So I thought the bats looked really, really good. It was good to see guys like Jalen Flores, kind of snap out of that slow start that he had. And man, just really excited to see them come home 9-1. We got a 5-game homestand here in Austin now to prep us, final prep for the big games when the SEC lights come on, man. So great weekend overall. I was excited.
Yeah, I know you were mentioned the bats, right?
I'm glad you mentioned the bats because that was something that I always question people early in the season because you start looking at how the season is being played. It was cold. It was not a good, effective time for guys that we all know can hit. And so when people were asking that question, well, they didn't do well against Dartmouth. Well, Dartmouth mixes it up. They're not a hard-throwing baseball team. They're going to keep you off balance, and they were giving you everything they possibly had. So real players that have put up the numbers, they always show up. So little adjustment here, going to Vegas. I remember there was a time that I was struggling, and we went on the road to El Paso, Midland, and San Antonio. I came back. I was player of the week. I had all kinds of stuff going on because I went to a place that was conducive to what I was doing at that time. And then the confidence started to roll. Flores is a confident guy. I don't know if y'all have ever really spent a lot of time with Galvan, but that dude is super confident. So you got to understand that all those dudes were going to find a way to get that going because you can't keep good players like that down.
Oh, Zach, you're on mute, buddy.
I was talking to Slosnagel today on our weekly show, and I mentioned Flores. I said, look, if you look at Tuesday night's game against Incarnate Word, about halfway through, he got just a smasher right at the third baseman who happened to catch it. And I said, He followed up with a double down the left field line. And I said, that was the Flores that we know and saw and loved last season. I was like, short, compact, not getting too loose, wasn't chasing outside. And I said, he goes to Vegas and you see the exact same thing. He's repeated it. And Slosnagel said, yeah, he's like, look, Tulo challenged those guys. He came in there and said, look, I want you to work on this, this, and this. And Slosnagel even said, he's like, look, I was a little scared on Tuesday night. I didn't know what we were going to do offensively because he's like, it's not good to have guys thinking and trying to hit at the same time, which, Mike, I know you can attest to for sure.
Absolutely.
But he said, look, halfway through the Incarnate Word game, things got going. And he's like, we just carried that on into the weekend. And we had really, really good practices, and we were able to kind of lock in on what Tulo was preaching. So, yeah, it was good to see the bats going, though, because to y'all's point, everyone was starting to go, hey, what's happening there? We know that lineup can hit 1 through 9. Why aren't you hitting? So, starting pitching again was a strong point.
Yes.
That's Harrison had his moments where I think he got a little too deep into counts, but otherwise he caught a career high in strikeouts. That's something that's very encouraging to my side. Going into the last tune-up weekend before conference play is knowing that you can count on those guys to get those outs, give you 5 innings strong.
Yeah, absolutely, Zach. I've seen some great stuff from both him and Spencer, right? And what I really notice is their body language. both of those guys just look so damn confident on the mound, man. And I think coming into the season, nobody really knew what to expect from a starting pitching perspective, right? And I think if you look at the numbers right now, I don't see how you could not be happy with what you've seen out of Spencer and Harrison, right? Both of these guys have sub-2 ERAs right now, have had 3, really solid performances, and they just, you can see the confidence growing in them the more and more innings they get under their belt. So they did a fantastic job. Zach, I want to hear kind of your thoughts about the Sunday starting role and what we might end up seeing there. Obviously Bing has been kind of slotted in that situation, and he's had some good innings. But I'm really interested to see, if you think Schlossnagle is going to stick with that rotation, once we get around to SEC play.
Yeah, we talked about that today some, and I think the message there was we're not looking to upset the apple cart yet, right? We have a lot of faith in Cade Bing. He in the fall, he was the strike thrower, and so
yeah,
they're going to give that guy every opportunity to show he can be the guy, because when he's on, he's on. I think their concern, though, is, starting a little bit slower than they would have liked, continuing to give up those free bases. And so they've got a guy waiting in the wings, essentially, in Dylan Volantis that they know can be a superstar and will likely be a starter at some point this season. But it goes back to, do we make that switch now, right? We really want to have our guys locked in ahead of conference play, because once you get into conference play, you really don't want to mess with that too much. But then he said the other thought is, look, we could totally just go with a third option as TBA every single weekend. And if we need to go steal a game, we're going to use Bing, or we're going to use Volantis in game 1 or game 2, because you don't want to get swept, right? So you have to win at least one of them. And so he said, we may end up doing that. He said they did that a lot last year, and you see that a lot in the SEC. But there's definitely conversations going on about what does this mix look like. You had a lot of people asking about Grubbs. Grubbs could start, absolutely. So could Ruger. But I think they are so pleased at the development of having Grubbs in that role. Yeah. He goes, if you have 2 back-end guys that are utility, that can close out a game or start a game or, come in long relief, he goes, that's game-changing right there. And so that they're really happy. So I think it's going to be Bing's to lose, but, there's certainly eyes and conversations going on.
Well, I believe the person that's going to end up getting that spot is going to be Jason Flores. I think that he is a guy that understands it. He believes in his stuff. You saw it last week. Obviously, he's going to get another start this week, tomorrow night, or whenever we're going to show this on Tuesday night. But, you start to look at the development and the mentality of it. Yes, in the fall, Bing was a guy that you could feel comfortable with throwing strikes, but he hadn't shown you that now. The lights are about to get real bright. So not taking anything away from him, and this is the perfect time for you to continue to see if he can get there. This is that time. But when you get into that SEC play, and I've heard it from multiple coaches, it is a grind every single weekend. And to your point, Zach, of trying to steal a game here or there, those moments may be more frequent than what we think, just because of the stress that each at bat and each pitch is going to put on you, because you may be playing against this team here, but there's another team down the road that is playing the same schedule and trying to do the same things, and they're used to this walk. You know what I'm saying? They know what it is. So that's where I'm looking forward to watching this pitching staff grow. Obviously, Ant Farm has these boys throwing a lot of strikes, and I am secretly pulling for Max Grubbs to be that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's shown a lot last year when Texas needed him the most, and he came back and he's actually repeating what he did last year. So I'm secretly pulling for him. Guess it ain't a secret no more.
Yeah, Hardge, I love that thought about Flores. I was kind of blown away by how he looked last Tuesday, and obviously it was just one performance, right? But I'm looking to see him build off of that, this Tuesday and again next week. But that's a good name to think about. And Zach, going to your comment, I was almost kind of thinking maybe Bing is, almost playing kind of that opener role on Sunday, right? Where you really just ask him for an inning or two. And if he's doing well, maybe you keep rolling him right out there. But I liked how they brought Valantis in on Saturday against Tech, right? Typically we've been seeing him on Sundays, and, they slid him in Saturday. He looked fantastic again. And he just looks like he's one of those pieces that you can use almost anywhere, right? If you need 3 or 4 really good innings from a pitcher, you can just kind of slide him in wherever you need him. So just a good situation to be in, right? I think at the beginning of the season, we were all worried about who was going to play what role, but now to be talking about 4 or 5 names that are all really solid pitchers, right? That's a good problem to have, 2 weeks away from SEC play.
Yeah, for me, the thing with Jason Flores is I think what really hurts or limits him there right at the moment is, that missed Tuesday night game against Houston, because that was going to be his game. Yep. And so he has one less start under his belt. I think, he obviously went 44 or 45 pitches last week. It'll be interesting to see what he does against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, because I think they're I know that they're a weaker hitting team even than Incarnate Word. But if the goal is to maybe slot him in that role, now you start to have to really adjust. Well, maybe we only want him to go 21 or 25 pitches somewhere in there, so we can keep him fresh to maybe get him on a Sunday start and then get him on that track. Because the biggest thing that I've always seen is it's trying to get those guys lined up on their routines, and that takes a toll on a guy going early like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
He's a freshman. It ain't gonna bother him. He got that dude. Freshmen are trying to get it, man. They like, I want that ball on Sunday. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Hardge, can you imagine, though, a freshman, all you've had is Tuesday night starts at the Dish, and then they roll you out there in Starkville, Mississippi in front of 18,000 people?
Get it ready, baby. Get it ready.
That'd be a hell of a way to get started as a weekend starter, huh?
The mug going to be out there with earbuds.
Man, I can't wait for that weekend. I'm already fired up about that trip.
That's going to be a fun trip. Which, speaking of which, a lot of folks have pointed out, hey, well, Texas is third in the SEC in the number of errors, and I said, well, they're a turf team, right? They don't play on natural grass. They've played all fall on the turf. They got guys like Adrian Rodriguez. He's not a third baseman. He's a shortstop by trade. So they got guys playing in different positions. But it was funny because Schlossnagle brought it up. He said, look, it's different, but it's good that we got these 2 natural grasses or natural surfaces out of the way early, because come to find out, the only 2 places they're going to go for the rest of the season, outside of maybe a regional or super regional, is Arkansas and Mississippi State. Those are the only 2 places they visit that actually have natural surface. Now, every turf is going to play different, but I think that speaks to, look, it's early in the season. You're counting on some younger guys, and they're going to get that sorted out pretty dang quickly. So,
yeah, man, we got too low. I mean, they're going to figure that out. They're going to figure out how to pick it. I mean, he brings the best out of you in a lot of different phases. So I think that this team, to your point, you got to do playing third base. That's a shortstop naturally. And everybody thinks, oh, he's a great athlete. He played shortstop. No, that's not always how it plays out. There's some time and some athleticism that needs to be put into place as well. But watching this team play, since you brought up the infield type of stuff, I think the rhythm is starting to happen with everybody. Yeah. When things are in a good poetry in motion type of situation, you got a guy on the mound that's going to throw ground balls. So you're ready to go. And once they figure out who's who, we know Friday, we know Saturday. Once we get to Sunday, these guys are going to be able to physically and mentally be able to set themselves up on a good defensive play, because they know what this guy is going to do. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well, as far as that playing time is concerned.
Yeah. I think 5 games at home on the carpet are going to help here in the next week as well. Right. I think if you go back to last week, again, you factor in just terrible weather and the conditions. So hopefully, they need some confidence under their belt from,
Absolutely.
I think especially from A-Rod's perspective at third base, but he just needs some more reps and he'll be fine, man. I'm confident they're going to figure that out. And Zach, that's a great stat on your end. I actually didn't realize we were only playing 2 more series on natural surfaces. So That makes me a little bit less concerned. For some reason in my head, I was thinking we probably had about 4 or 5 of those left. But yeah, I guess more people have turf than I thought. So
yeah, there's more teams that have turf than I realized in the SEC, and then I started doing some more research, and it's just, I think I talked to Drew Bishop about this a while back, and it was, grass looks beautiful, right? It feels nice, it's great to play on, but when you look at the monetary aspect of athletics, they got to run these camps, they got to do fall practices, they got to do spring practices. You can do turf anytime. Like, you don't have to maintain it. It's just there. And so you don't think about the business operations side of it until someone brings it up, and it kind of clicks, and you're like, wow, yeah, that makes sense why they make a whole bunch more money than other schools on their baseball program. So
yeah.
What talking about the bullpen, right? So we got Ruger Riojas, kind of a known entity. They're going to give him a week off essentially until this coming weekend. Got Max Grubbs. What have y'all seen from like a guy like Drew Rarick? He's a big freshman. He still gets a little amped up, but he's able to throw real hard, and he's got stuff. It's just about harnessing it at this point, it seems like.
Yeah, he's definitely been impressive, right? I think he's looked good out there on the mound. I want to go back there to your comment about Ruger. So you're saying they're just holding him out till this weekend against Santa Clara? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Saul Stengel said that they felt like they put a lot of work on him super early.
Yeah.
They want to back that off, just let him get his feet under him. So he won't pitch Tuesday night, neither will Max Grubbs. And then they'll look to ease those guys back in against Santa Clara if needed, right? And you may be able to, steal a game or two without having to use those guys. So
yeah. But going back to my comment, Rarick's look good, and also, man, the guy that I want to see throw a lot more is Thomas Burns, right? That guy's got some really good stuff. He's a hard thrower as well, so got to have that type of guy coming out of the bullpen. So again, man, it's going to be difficult for Schloss. He's only got a couple more games to kind of toy around, right, and see what guys have before we get into SEC play. So I think the next 5 games will be a really good opportunity to see what some of these other arms are capable of.
You're right about Burns, and another one that I really want to see is Mercer. I want to see Mercer a little bit more and try to figure out what his situation is going to be. Is he going to be a specialist? Is he going to be a long, short? What is he going to do? Because he's old enough, he's more experienced, but he needs to take that job, that spot, and be able to make it happen. But I'm with you. I really think that Burns has an opportunity to do some special things. And if they can get him locked in and loaded, I think he's got a good chance of doing some good things here.
Yeah, and Hardge and Zach, the guy that I want to give some love to, man, that I feel like doesn't get enough credit sometimes is Duplantier out of the pen, man. He's been pretty fantastic so far. And I know in his past he's run into some instances where he's had some issues with walks. But I think I was looking at his stats earlier. He's got like 7 Ks, no walks at this point in the season. He's just been pitching really, really well. So I'm excited about him. And Zach, like, if you had to guess right now, who do you think we would see as a closer, come SEC play time? If Schloss and Wiener had to make that decision right now, do you think there's one name that would stick out, or do you think you might be seeing a couple of different guys, coming in those type of situations?
I think it honestly depends on what the matchup looks like, right? Yeah. Max uses analytics quite a bit. Schlossnagle, Kane are more kind of feel guys where, what does this situation look like? What do the stats tell you about him? Is he a high contact guy? Is he a ground baller? Does he have more power, pull, side hitter, whatever? So I think they really do play those analytics a lot in determining how they match up the infield and then kind of the pitcher that they're trusting. So, it's funny, like Easton Winfield, as an example, they saw his batting practice on Thursday out in Vegas and said, we got to get him on the field. Like, it's looking right. And so I think the same thing with the pitchers. Max is watching those bullpens and going, all right, Burns, we got to get you back out there. You had a little command issue before, but you looked really solid. So, I think Duplantier is definitely one of those guys that they are high leverage trust guys. Max Grubbs and Ruger Riojas are the others. I think Burns is probably right up there. to Hardge's point, I think they'd like Mercer to be that guy. He's got the experience. I think the deal for him is more so mentally than it is physically. Physically, he's great, right? He's got a better fastball than he did previously. And now it's about being comfortable with your arm and being comfortable with the motion of letting it go and letting it rip. You know, Tanner Witt used to talk about it all the time. He goes, I was afraid to let it rip. He goes, I could do it, but man, it scared the hell out of me, right? So making sure that he's in a good mental place, I think, is the most important. And that's, you couldn't ask for a better staff to have. Tulo, Sloss, the entire group is fully focused on the mental aspect. So
absolutely. Hardge, I wanted to get your thoughts on something. You know, obviously you played a lot of ball in your day, and me specifically watching college baseball teams play, right? I know major leagues is a little bit of a different story, minor leagues as well. But I feel like when you watch college baseball teams, you can tell so much by just looking in the dugout and seeing how they act during a game or how they respond after a teammate makes a big play. And that's one of the things that I'm just really excited about with this team, Hardge and Zach. They just seem excited to be on the field together every game. And I feel like we haven't always seen that in the last couple of years with Texas teams, right? It's more of like a business type atmosphere, right? But I've just really liked seeing these guys have a good time together. I think I've seen Max Ballou really break out of his shell and start showing a lot of leadership and personality. Am I thinking too much into that, Hardge, or is that an important component about a baseball team at high levels?
I think it's definitely real. I mean, I firmly believe that is something that is important, how excited it is. I've been excited about watching that as well. So those things that you're talking about have been very, very impressive to me. But the one thing that I will continue to say is you got to look at, it's a new voice, it's a new season, it's a new team, and the team is actually really, really good. Yeah. So it makes a difference when the joy and the beauty of it all is being expressed. You know, watching them in the dugout with the clapping and they get on the base and they're always doing some different things with each other. But to me, it is something that needed to happen here. And everybody, I mean, you're out there every single day. You were out there supporting, win, lose, or draw, but the energy is totally different. Yeah. The energy around the program seems to be, all right, guys, let's go. Here we go. Like you post, now we go. You know what I'm saying? Like
exactly.
It's those types of moments that you have to bottle those up. And I'm glad you noticed that about Max Ballou, because I said the same thing. It's like this dude wakes up and just rakes, and he's having fun again with people. Yeah. You know, because he's always been real quiet. When I first met him, and I'm on the sideline getting ready to do the interview with him, it was like he didn't know what he wanted to say. Now you do an interview with him, and he's ready. Yeah. He knows. And, you know, being player of the year kind of goes with his privileges, right?
That's kind of funny. I hope I don't get in trouble for telling this story, but we were hanging out with Max's dad in Vegas. And, you know, after that Friday game, he's just like, man, he just seems like a different player at this point. You know, he's got, we're looking at some of the content that Texas baseball social media is putting out about him, like screaming on the field and hyping up the team. And, you know, Max's dad is like, that's not my son, man. I've never seen him do that at any level. And just all of a sudden, it looks like he's having so much fun out there. So that's really cool to see.
Yeah. I've been telling everybody that wanted to listen that they need to come out there and hang out with you and your crew out there. But most importantly, just to come to the ballpark and watch the energy in that mug now. I mean, people really, really are curious, number one. Obviously, with a change, everybody wants to come and check out the new show. But it's always good when your team is winning. And I know y'all heard it on our show the other day where he said, ain't no reason for us to be playing road games at the beginning. And you were like, wait, what? What does this mean? Yeah. What does this mean? And he was like, no, this is Texas. We should be getting everybody to come to us instead of having to go somewhere And I got it, and I knew where you were going. You're like, no. I want those trips. I want those.
Oh yeah.
Trips.
Oh yeah. Hey, we need some vacation, man. Come on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one thing we talked as well is about the team identity, because every team has a different identity, different leadership style. And, some guys are just hard nosed to the ground. And I think that's one of the things that you notice from the fall to now. And Mark, you and I talked about this previously, but it was in the fall, everyone was just kind of nose down. It was like, I got to do my job. I got to get better. I got to focus on this. I'm listening to what's going on. Because to Mike, to your point, it's a brand new voice, right? You're getting new you're hearing new things for the first time, or you're getting reinforced. And now that the season's here, they can kind of let go and go, all right, it's baseball, man. We're having fun. We're here to play.
Yep.
And you've got guys like Galvan, you got guys, even Harrison, they got that attitude to them. They got that swagger. And so that carries over when they're being successful.
Yep.
They're pumping each other up. And, a guy like Oliver Service, even, there is not a better top or first step guy than Oliver Service. He is pumping every player up. He is out there day or night, rain or shine, and he is getting you ready to go. And so you got that great mix of youth and experience where they've been through some shit. Let's be honest, they've been through it, right? But they're hungry, and that youthful exuberance has come through. And I think that's what you see from Max.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. Well, guys, thank y'all for having me. I know that y'all are going to continue to roll, but as always, I love talking baseball with you. I love the game. I love this team, and it's getting better and better. And me being in Frisco this past weekend and having to watch the game from afar, I was frustrated. I kept saying, put me on that game. Let me go out there for that game. And they were like, no, Hardge, we know what happened to you. We got to make sure you get to the broadcast.
Nice. Awesome. Are you going to be in town this weekend?
I'm going to be in town. I'll be there tomorrow.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. Well, we'll see you out in left field, man. Take care, Hardge.
Appreciate y'all.
Take care, Mike.
Yeah.
Later.
Thank you.
But yeah, so you mentioned that earlier, Mark. 5-game homestand, coming up. So 5. I hate to say winnable games, but these are 5 winnable games. Like realistically, going into the first conference series, I think fans should feel very good about what this looks like. And it's going to be a tough place to play, Mississippi State. I think a lot of people are going to be there's going to be a lot of excitement around it just because it is that first weekend. There's going to be 18,000 strong. But I just encourage everyone to get out this weekend because the weather's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to see a fun team at home. Because, this is going to be the last fun weekend, I'll call it. Because after that, things get real serious real fast.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see how they show this weekend. Right. And I don't want to look past tomorrow night, but you try as a fan, you try not to get too excited about what you're seeing. But I'm sitting here looking at this team at 9-1, and all I can think about is, man, a 14-game win streak would be really nice to be riding into Starkville in a couple of weeks. So, I think the next 5 games, like you mentioned, they're all absolutely winnable. Texas is going to be the better team in all of those games, and I want to see how this team plays now that people are expecting good things out of them, right? I felt like the first couple of weeks, there weren't a ton of expectations from the fan side. They just wanted to see, what the team was going to look like. But now we want to see that consistency. We want to see them win games that they should be winning. And yeah, big weekend ahead. Because like I said, they only have 5 left until they start playing for keeps. And that grind of the SEC is going to start up. And man, jumping right into that with LSU and Mississippi State, but reverse order, of course. Yeah. That's going to be some fun baseball, man. I really can't wait to see those weekends.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of people today, and I said, look, you hate to look ahead, but you have one more weekend at home. And the next time you're at home, it's the number 1 team in the nation, very likely rolling into town and looking to do some damage. So, yeah, it's not a rude awakening because, Mississippi State's a very solid team. They just dropped out of the top 25. But, it's going to be an interesting road series. And then you come back home, and there's no days off. It's number 1 team waiting for you. So, it'll be interesting to see. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think these road trips have been really good I agree with you, right? I hate seeing them just not be at home early in the season because they're not getting the same reps. But to some end, I think it actually will benefit them in the long run because they'll get down these road trips and they'll have that experience of, okay, here's our schedule. Here's what it looks like. Here's what we have to do to be successful. So, yeah, I think it's actually a good thing for this season that they had those back-to-back weekend, or not back-to-back, but the 2 weekends off.
Yep. Zach, I know you've had an opportunity to talk to Coach Schloss quite a bit. I'd like to get your thoughts on how tight you think he's going to keep his batting order once we get into SEC play. I'm wondering if he's really just going to stick with a core 9 guys and you're not going to see a ton of movement there. Do you think there's still going to be some opportunities there for other guys on the bench to get some playing time in SEC games?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit today, but from a lineup perspective, once you get into conference play, he'd really like that lineup to be pretty solidified.
Yeah.
There's probably about 10 guys right now that he thinks are everyday contributors. Well, there's only so many spots on the field, right? And so then there's another 3 or 4 guys that are probably fringe where, maybe it's a matchup or maybe they've had a really good week in practice or a really good day in practice, AB wise. The biggest battle is still going to be at left field. Tommy Farmer's done everything in the world you asked of him, right? He's hitting just under 300. He's continuing to show maturity and be able to hit those doubles and get extra bases. There's a lot of work to do though still, right? Like chasing the stuff away. At the same time, I was looking over these stats today. Easton Winfield in his first, I think 5 games or 6 games, he was 2 for 19. Well, on Sunday, he goes 2 for 3. And they said, like, we had to get him play because we can't just let him sit there for a week. He's a guy that needs to play. He's talented. And so I think you're going to see those fringe guys go in and out. And I hate saying them fringe guys, but like they haven't won the job, right? So it's a fringe guy.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have Galvan at catcher, but you can't play him every single game.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the expectation that he's basically going to catch every single,
the weekend games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the good news there is you got a guy like freshman Cole Chamberlain. If you look at the on-base percentage, he's actually 3rd on the team, right? He's got some strikeouts. He doesn't have a lot of hits, but the guy gets on base because he's drawing walks. So I've been impressed with the progression that a lot of the guys have seen and shown. But I think, come Mississippi State, that's pretty much the lineup you're going to get. The one guy might move up or down just depending on what they're seeing from a matchup. But yeah, it's pretty well solidified at this point.
Yeah. I'm again just really wanting to see more of Winfield. I was actually a little bit surprised he didn't get in Friday or Saturday in those games, but it was good to see him get a start yesterday and, like you mentioned, get a couple of hits. So we'll see what Schloss does moving forward. If you had to guess, who do you think is going to win that left field position? Do you think there's any opportunity that both of them kind of trade in, trade out, maybe see one of them at DH, one at left field and kind of rotate it back and forth? Or do you think we're going to get one guy who wins that job and stays in left field?
I think you're going to continue to see some platooning there. Tommy Farmer's done too much and shown too much, especially in practices and everything else. Like, they wanted to get Winfield in the game on Friday and Saturday, but it was a matter of fact, like, hey, the other guy's done everything we've asked him to do. He's done it the right way, and he's actually produced. And so you've got to reward those guys for doing that. But to that end, they do want Winfield. Like, they understand the upside there of his natural ability, his power, his speed on the base paths. So I think they're going to give him every chance to win that job. It's going to be a battle between the two. And to your point, yeah, you could see one in DH and one in left field and flip-flop the very next game, depending on what the matchup looks like.
Absolutely.
Because the other thing that Schlossnagle has talked about previously was, and one of the reasons Cole Chamberlain, outside of just being very productive, has done is he's a left-handed hitter. And they're not satisfied with the number of left-handed hitters they have in the lineup. And so they want to increase that number. Well, Winfield helps you do that, right? He gets that extra left-handed hitter in there. And the same thing with Chamberlain at DH. And that's going to be important because you start looking at the matchups from the pitchers in the SEC. And surprisingly enough, a lot of the best ones are actually right-handers this year. So those left-handed hitters are going to be very, very impactful throughout the rest of the season.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on the move yesterday to get Borba some time at third base and put A-Rod at DH? Do you think there's any shot there that Schloss would try and leverage A-Rod as more of a DH instead of third base? Or are you confident that he's going to be able to lock that position down and get more comfortable there over at third?
I think he's pretty well locked it down. I think that was more of a rewarding Borba with at bats because he deserved it, right? Like he's done all the work as well. He's pushed Adrian throughout. So they don't want to just, have him languish and not get him at bats every so often. I could foresee a situation though on Tuesday nights midweek where Borba starts and they do DH Adrian. Because again, he's a freshman, and even though he's put on 20 pounds in the offseason, and it's going to be a grind, and that's going to wear on you at some point. It doesn't matter if you're hitting 400 now. It's what are you hitting in May? So keeping him fresh, keeping his legs fresh. Also just him understanding the flow of the game, I think is really good. If he's had a tough game, like 2 errors, it doesn't matter if they were hit 109 off the bat at you, right? You got to make the play. And so giving him a mental refresher, just, okay, yeah, I can do this. This is fine. I think that's also very important for him as well.
Absolutely. I see our guy Cody Jones in the chat. He's been good at hanging out with us on Monday nights.
Absolutely.
So Zach, do you know Cody? Have you met him before? He's actually from Mississippi. We met him at a Texas weekend in Arlington several years back. So Cody, thanks for joining us again, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We're gonna be
I don't know Cody at all. But glad he's been hanging out. The other guy I think you're going to see get some midweek action is actually the baby Duplantier. So Gumbo, he's continued to put in that work, put in that grind. And I think he's really shown the coaches something. Coach Schlossnagle talked about him today, and he was very impressed with the way he's carried himself, the way he's gone about things. So he's another guy that, it's tough, right? You got Mendoza, you've got Flores. Those are 2 guys really tough to take off the field, but they're going to try to slot in Gumbo and maybe at DH at times just to give him some reps too. Because again, he's very quick. He's got a good bat. We've seen that his freshman year, especially. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of evolves this year.
No, it's a great spot to be in, Zach. And I was, thinking as I was flying home yesterday from Vegas that you kind of heard some comments in the offseason just saying like, hey, we've got that frontline depth. We're not sure what we have on the bench. Right. We need everybody to stay healthy type of thing. And while that's absolutely still true, I feel like the guys that are next in line are spread out very well position wise. Right. Mm-hmm. You have Winfield there who you can plug into the outfield if you need him at any point during the season. Right. If somebody should get injured or anything of that nature. Right. You talked about Chamberlain, backing up Galvan. So we've got somebody there that we trust and who we know can slide into that position. And then you also have Borba and Duplantier from an infield position perspective, right? And those guys can slide in and play when you need them to. So doesn't feel like you have any position where you're just like completely bare behind it. So that's a good spot to be in, because that's really what I wanted to see the first month of the season is, show me the starters playing good ball, but I also want to see somebody behind them that you can trust if they need to go in there and play for a couple of weeks due to an injury or, just somebody that you want to get in there to give a guy a rest or get some experience on a Tuesday night. So I feel like we've got it pretty well set up. And, if everybody can stay healthy, we've got the right amount of bodies there, I think, for SEC play.
Yeah, I think that's true of the pitching staff as well. Grayson Saunier got that outing in the 9th inning on Sunday. And that was really important because he's able that he can go out there and throw strikes. Command was the issue with him coming out of Ole Miss. They knew what kind of fastball he had, but can you throw that secondary stuff? Can you land it for strikes? And that's another piece out of the bullpen where in the fall they were talking about, well, Saunier may be the guy that is the closer, right? And so if they're able to develop another arm that they can really lean on, well, now all of a sudden you've got a really nice quartet of Grubbs, Riojas, Burns, and Saunier. You mix in a veteran guy like Duplantier and, a kind of a lefty specialist in Mercer, you're starting to put together a bullpen that you feel like, okay, if our starters can go 4 or 5, we can now piece the rest together, and we're not going to be sweating it out, like last year where it was like, your starter might go 1 inning, he might go 7 innings. There's no telling, and it's flip of a coin every single time. So
yeah. So, as we are less than 2 weeks away from the Mississippi State series, are you more or less confident about this team as you were at the beginning of the season? I would think more, but I just want to hear, like, what's your thought process? What do you want to see over the next 5 games getting ready for Mississippi State and LSU?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I think from a confidence perspective, I have more confidence in the team itself based on the play they've shown. Areas they need to work on. I was looking at across the board, walks and strikeouts, power, extra base hits, errors, and all that. Certainly the errors is something they've got to clean up. You can't allow free runners and extra outs. That's going to kill you in the SEC. Strikeouts, it's not as bad as I thought. They're up there, but they're not as bad as some. But they're going to have to decrease those. Now, the offensive philosophy that Tulo and Schloss like, where you go deep in counts, you're going to see more strikeouts, but you're also going to have that, extra base hit ability. So, really it's the errors, cutting down on some strikeouts. And then at some point you'd like to see him tap into a little more power. Love Max Ballou's decision to just, hit 109 rockets up the middle every at bat. But, you're going to need to have those guys that can hit a home run when you need it. So, it'll be very interesting to see, if the power kind of continues to develop on this team, because Mendoza's run into a couple. Flores has it, he does. Kimball has it, hasn't really shown it this year. So what does that look like going forward? Yeah. My man Jeff is in the chat as well. And yes, the 30-man roster for SEC travel is going to be very, very interesting in how they handle that with regards to the bullpen and some of the hitters. So
yeah. Going back to power, man, I didn't get to make the game yesterday. We're actually flying home during that Illinois game, but I was shocked Texas didn't hit like 3 to 5 home runs in that game. All I kept hearing as I was waiting for my flight in Vegas was that the wind was blowing out straight to left at like 30 miles an hour. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to miss the show. But still scored some runs, just didn't put many over the fence. So what can you do?
My weekend recap, I said, if you had told me that there was 30-mile-an-hour gust with 20 sustained to, right center, right field with this Texas team, they would have had at least 5 home runs. I was like, if you would have told me that they had 0 home runs in those conditions, I told you that they got their ass beat. So
yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what, though, man, that Saturday game, that ball that Gasparino hit to left center was an absolute nuke. We were out there standing in left field, kind of closer to the foul line. He hit that ball like halfway up the signage and left field, man. That was an absolute rocket. And I was impressed by that stadium. It was actually really, really nice, nicer than I expected it to be. So we had a really good time out there.
Yeah, I saw the exit velo in the distance on it, and I can't remember if they put 414 or 389 because there was 2 home runs and 1 was each. But there was no way in the world that they had the correct distance estimated on Gaspos, because that thing was launched. I mean, it just continued to travel, and it wasn't a line drive. Like, it had some arc and power to it. So
absolutely. Like, I see Sean in the chat. He's not on the show, but he's in the chat. Come on, man.
Hey Sean, I got free tickets to you, man. Send me an email.
That's amazing. Love it.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I think I'm going to wrap it up here. It was great talking to you baseball again and having Hardge on. And of course, we'll be back on next Monday to talk about the Santa Clara game or series and what happened on Tuesday against Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Absolutely. Another plug for all of the fans to get out to the yard this next week, man. The weekend's going to be nice weather, and man, the team needs the support. So I'm really hoping, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we see that stadium full, and excited to see if the guys can keep this going, man. I'm going to call it now. We're going to be 14-1 going into the Mississippi State series. So I'm excited to see them play this weekend.
Love it. Love it. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for attending, and I will catch y'all next week. Welcome.
Awesome. Welcome.